Hi, everybody. It's Michael Silber, Event Director for Enlit Australia, continuing our series of discussions with industry leaders. Today, I'm really honored to have with us the Chief Executive Officer of Stanwell Corp, Richard Van Breda. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Michael, and it's great to be here today and to talk to you a little bit about Stanwell and what's happening in the industry.
Well, one of the things I'm really interested in, what we're all talking about, is the energy transition. And I'd like to begin by asking you about your broad view of the energy transition and how it's going to affect Stanwell's customers, and Australia in general.
Michael, I'm sometimes not sure where to start when this question's asked, but the energy sector is changing rapidly, and the pace of change is only set to get faster. This is driven by a number of things: changing customer demands, the need to decarbonize and offset emissions, decreasing technology costs, and the changing composition of the generation fleet. These factors are in turn forcing changes in market rules to ensure that the market can deliver on these requirements. Other key issues include evolving social sentiment in relation to fossil fuels, climate change and emissions reduction activities, the variability of wind and solar generation, creating an ongoing need to manage intermittency, new generation and storage technology entering the market, which is very exciting. And then importantly, and sets the backdrop, I suppose, is policy instability and government intervention eroding investor confidence. So there's a whole range of things driving this transition. It's already impacting our customers, energy companies and the broader energy market, and we expect this to intensify significantly over time. More and more, our customers and communities are requiring sustainable, affordable and secure sources of energy. In response, the physical and financial markets are having to evolve very, very quickly, and we're seeing that in the number of rule changes and the reg submissions that are happening day to day. Small and large energy consumers have more options to create, store and use their energy, and distributed energy is becoming a lot more competitive, which is a growing challenge for our business as a traditional energy generator. Many of our large commercial and industrial customers are also looking for ways to source a growing portion of their energy from renewable energy sources. And as a generator with predominant portfolio in coal and fossil fuels, we need to work through and respond to this. The energy market's also seen unprecedented levels of large-scale and rooftop solar and wind power introduced. As an example, in Queensland, we now have an installed capacity of 19,000 megawatts, and that includes solar rooftop. 30% of that is large-scale solar and rooftop solar. So that's a very significant part of our installed capacity in Queensland. And this increased variable energy input to the grid is creating the need for new markets to help manage system services such as frequency and inertia. And in particular, we're seeing challenges around security of the grid, stability of the grid in North Queensland as an example. Our view is, not our view, but we honestly believe Stanwell has a very critical role to play, providing affordable, secure and reliable energy while at the same time transitioning our business to a low carbon future and providing a future for our people and the communities in which we operate. So we're exploring a range of opportunities to evolve and renew our portfolio. And hydrogen, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, is very much part of that story.
Yeah, so drilling down into that, into the potential of hydrogen, I suppose from a broad perspective, how do you see it as a key component, or what are the realistic opportunities for hydrogen's use in the Australian market?
It's a really exciting question, and for Stanwell, it's actually an exciting prospect. I think demand for green hydrogen is to a large extent going to be driven out of the policies of the energy-constrained economies such as Japan and South Korea. In those economies, hydrogen is one of the options available to reduce carbon emissions in the transport, power generation and industrial sectors.
Mhm.
And that's why these countries have plans to import green hydrogen from countries such as Australia that have abundant renewable energy resources. This emerging export market represents a great opportunity for the regions, and central Queensland in particular, which have excellent renewable energy resources, great port facilities, and a strong track record of developing new industries such as LNG. And Stanwell, and I'll talk up our game, we have a long-standing presence in the region, and we're very keen to support the development of this export market. Domestically, we expect the strongest take-up of hydrogen to be in markets where hydrogen can find a niche, such as in heavy transport and in mining trucks, and in particular where existing infrastructure is already in place, such as gas pipelines.
So very specifically to power generation, where do you see hydrogen? What role will hydrogen play in that sector?
I think it's a great question, Michael, and there's lots of speculation, and we'll talk about some of the challenges a little bit later on. But certainly in the medium term, we expect that the use of hydrogen for power generation to increase in energy-constrained countries such as Japan and Korea. This will likely be achieved through fuel cell technology and hydrogen turbines. Both technologies are still relatively high cost, relatively expensive, so uptake will really depend on how quickly they can come down that cost curve. There's also the potential for ammonia as a hydrogen derivative to be co-combusted in coal-fired power stations to help reduce carbon emissions. And there are a number of Japanese utilities that are currently testing this approach. Mm-hmm. In Australia, we see hydrogen power generation mainly playing a role in off-grid or fringe-of-grid situations, or co-located with large-scale hydrogen electrolysis to provide additional revenue streams. Hydrogen could provide supplementary storage and generation required to ensure a reliable energy supply. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. Australia has abundant renewable energy, and we've seen that with developments and investment over the last couple of years. And it has other cheaper firming options, such as battery storage and pumped hydro. So we don't think hydrogen power generation will be competitive in Australia at utility scale over the short to medium term. However, it's more likely to have a much more significant role in the longer term, and that's post-2030, when there is a higher proportion of renewables in the market.
So drilling down into that question a bit further, what's the potential of natural gas and hydrogen blends in large-scale generation, if there is any, in fact?
I'm not an expert in this area, but there are several trials that are underway in Australia and overseas to blend up to 10% hydrogen gas in natural gas distribution networks. And by substituting natural gas with green or blue hydrogen, carbon emissions can be reduced. In the future, this percentage could practically be increased, which could have significant emissions reduction benefits. And in regions like New South Wales or Victoria, where which use large volumes of domestic gas, this could be very beneficial.
So there's been talk about how hydrogen bridges the gap of intermittency, bridges the gap right now. Is that a potential for hydrogen, or will hydrogen play a role in that? In I suppose stabilizing the grid is the question.
I think we see this as an exciting part of the development of the hydrogen industry. Hydrogen electrolysis is a flexible energy load. It provides a perfect complement to variable renewable energy. So electrolyzers can be ramped up and down based on the availability or supply from renewable energy projects, wind and solar. And by creating flexible energy load, a hydrogen industry could help balance the energy grid, which is really critical, support energy security and reliability, and enable more renewable energy investment by increasing energy load and keeping synchronous generation in the market, dispatchable generation in the market. It will also help mitigate some of the challenges we've seen in markets with high renewable energy penetration. And I talked about North Queensland earlier and some of the challenges we're seeing in that particular market. In the future, we expect this form of renewable demand response will create additional value streams for hydrogen projects as well, along with the ability to participate in frequency control and ancillary services markets. So the opportunities abound.
You've already kind of touched on this, but here's the hot potato question. What are the biggest roadblocks to the implementation of a strong hydrogen market here in Australia?
Oh, Michael, it's a challenge establishing any new industry. Hydrogen, though, is very exciting, and we don't think these hurdles are insurmountable, but they will take considerable effort, and it will take considerable input from governments and from industry more broadly to make this happen. Cost is a major hurdle. Producing green hydrogen through electrolysis is currently around 3 times more expensive than producing hydrogen through coal gasification or steam methane reforming. To bring costs down, we need to increase electrolyzer deployment and manufacture and scale up manufacturing significantly. Mm-hmm. To kickstart the industry as well, we need to look at concessional funding and support from government agencies, and this is where the likes of ARENA have a very important role to play. The industry won't develop or won't take off without good, strong government support and industry support. The other key challenge will be market development. It's a critical piece of the puzzle. And over the next 5 years, we expect that most demand will need to come from domestic markets, in Australia in particular, such as feedstock and ammonia production. And that will establish the industrial facilities, allow production to happen, and that scale up. And some of these markets, such as transportation, and I talked about mine trucks and heavy transport, have a bit of a chicken and egg scenario where the demand will come once the infrastructure is in place. And the challenge there is the infrastructure will only happen once the demand's there. So somebody needs to take the first step and ensure that this industry is set up. I think the other important thing, Michael, is how global economic conditions will be impacted by COVID-19, and they could impact the speed of the hydrogen industry development. As I said initially, we believe we're very excited by the hydrogen prospects, but it is, and we don't believe that these challenges or hurdles are insurmountable.
Thank you for that. My final question is, what initiatives can we expect to see from Stanwell as it relates to the energy transition over the next 5 years or so?
It's a great question, because as an organization, we have been in the past very much a traditional generator into the market. We play a very significant role in providing secure, reliable and affordable energy to the people of Queensland and to Australia more broadly. But we believe we have a key role to play in Queensland's future energy market and in the national electricity market, in keeping energy secure and reliable and affordable. We're exploring a range of opportunities to evolve and renew our portfolio in response to market and consumer expectations. And this includes developing energy solutions for existing customers and facilitating the growth of new industries and energy load, which is really important. Through the pipeline of commercial projects that we have and commercial opportunities, we will help with that transition. To support this, we're actively seeking strategic partnerships in hydrogen, bioenergy and energy storage. And Stanwell is looking to support the creation of a large-scale green hydrogen industry in any way we can. And this may be through facilitating partnerships with investors, off-takers, original equipment manufacturers and developers, or providing low-cost firm green energy solutions through our portfolio. So there's a whole range of things happening, Michael, and it's really important that we do transition and evolve our portfolio over time. We're also looking at bioenergy options to co-combust renewable organic material in our existing assets and reduce our emissions intensity over time. And then I think importantly, we need to recognize that we need to look after and maintain our existing portfolio, because it will have a role to play into the future. And that includes operating at low loads, ramp rates, and how we can facilitate and support the transition of the market and the supply. So a key objective for us is managing the balance between the old and the new, And if we get that right, this will ensure that we're able to provide reliable, secure and affordable energy to our customers as Australia's energy mix changes.
And that is the goal, isn't it? Just reliable, affordable energy. Richard, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm really excited that you'll be joining us at our live event in March in Melbourne on our CEO panel. And again, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Michael, and I look forward to seeing you in March.